hey, I've got a new idea. Instead of this weird narrative that set piece goals shouldn't count, what if we make set piece goals the only ones that count? This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot. Block me on Twitter. Yeah, how about that? We would not have lost a game this season, I don't think. Yeah, think about that. Only set piece. We say this is what's weird, right? People will be like, well, without set piece goals, you do. Why don't people ever say, well, without open play goals? You know what I mean? Like, they're just goals, man. They're all goals. They go in the net. Never thought I would live in a timeline where we'd be annoyed at being good at set pieces. Unfortunately, being good at set pieces wasn't quite enough to beat Fulham this past weekend. And if you want the really raw emotional reaction to that, our instant reaction is there for you. And you can take that on board. We will have a history pod covering the 80s with John Sperling and Tim Stillman over on the Patreon subscriber side coming this week. And a couple of one or two other things, plus the instant reaction for the Monaco game when that happens as well. Another chance for us to sort of set things right and put ourselves in position to be top 8 in the Champions League, which is obviously going to be very important to get some time to rest and recover in February to the extent that's possible. With Liverpool not playing over the weekend, we made up a point. So, yay. Have I not read the room properly? Am I not reading the room right? Well, we'll see how we read the room today. I find these are tough games. I was upset at full time, and so I definitely let rip on the instant reaction. With the benefit of hindsight, I find myself pulled into the two poles. You know, the pole of recognizing we've dropped more points when we really weren't in a position to be able to do that, recognizing that we didn't quite create as much as I would like, but also recognizing we went to a tough place to play, a place where Fulham have been very good, where they've posted some very good underlying metrics, held them to nearly nothing, created enough to win the game, and didn't win it after it felt like we had won it. So it's an emotional reaction, but the intellectual side of it's going to be a little trickier, and I'm sure we have the right man to make that intellectual discussion profitable, valuable, helpful. And indeed, his name is Clive. You can find him on Twitter, Clive BFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello, look.
How you doing?
I'm all right. Going through the grieving process, right? And and coming out the other side, right? It's just football.
Look, the nice thing about losing a goal to VAR, he says, knowing there is no nice way to do that, is at least it's not a lost goal to VAR where there's a debate about whether VAR is right or not. You know what I mean? Like, he's offside, and like, I can live with it. But for you, in terms of gut punches, where does something like that rate? Because I think the late City equalizer is the only other one this season that hit me quite as, even the Liverpool goal, I don't think hit me as hard as having that goal taken away. It felt like such an important moment for us to get over the hump on a day when it wasn't going for us, you know?
Yeah, it did hit me. The City one didn't. I don't know why that was, because I was just pleased we performed so well. I was more disappointed with the refereeing decision to reduce us to 10 men. I think it ruined something, you know, for us to really see where we were. But yeah, I think this one bothered me a little bit because it answered some questions if we scored. It really did. And we spoke, didn't we, about how the IR would have been different if we'd have scored that goal. We'd have been talking about character. We'd have been talking about how we fought back and all the things that I've never been that confident of us doing, coming back away from home. I think the last time we came back away from home after being behind, potentially at half-time, might have been Villa away, the 4-2 game, when we scored 2 late goals towards the end to win. And so it's been a while since we've done that. So that's sort of, you know, I really wanted to prove that, and we just didn't quite do it, right? So it's a shame because now I've learned about data, and there's so many good data graphics out there. Any data one-pager you read tells me that 98 times out of 100 we win that game, and we just didn't on this occasion, and it's hard to take.
Yeah. I mean, it is one of those cases where you just can't get away from the fact that football is always going to be a bit of a results-based conversation, because from a process-based standpoint, I think there's plenty to feel okay about. And to your point, if the goal goes in, I think we're having your bog standard post-win conversation of made it a little nervier than it needed to be given all our dominance, but we got there and it shows character. You're absolutely right. But we don't get to have that conversation. Instead, there's an inquest. And the thing that I do find a little frustrating, and I get this, there is a tendency to make the last game you played the only game that matters in the conversation about the team. And I find this with myself too. Is the attack broken? Why don't we create enough? Do we have enough talent? And it's very easy to forget that post-international break, we were on a run of 3-0, 5-1, 5-2, 2-0, right? Like it's easy to forget those results. I do have some good news for you, Clive, though.
Go on then.
Title's basically in the bag for us. You might say, what's he
Okay.
talking about? But per Orbino on Blue Sky, if teams replicate last season's results in their remaining fixtures, Arsenal would win the league with 86 points, City 84, and Liverpool 82.
Oh,
So
relax. I'll relax now
I
then.
don't know what everybody's worried about, but there's the title basically in our hands. All we have to do is reproduce our results from last season. To be fair, though, it is kind of encouraging to know if we reproduce our results from here on, we'll finish on 86 points. Okay? And I'd probably sign off on that right now. But obviously, a big ask, and a lot of people are going to say, how do you expect us to reproduce last season's results with the way we're playing? We'll get into that. Let's start the conversation, though, I think, the actual match conversation here with the lineup. And we will get into the attack because I think the attack is the thrust of the conversation in some ways. But the lineup was a big decision point, and it just cannot be overstated how much it is hurting us with all of these cluster injuries at left back. We had no Calafiori. We had no Gabriel. We had no Zinchenko, who plays and then vanishes again. I heard, I think it was Andrew said he had writer's cramp.
Yeah.
What it was. No players to come in and naturally suit the left-hand side. Kieran Tierney hasn't played football in an age, and Miles Lewis-Skelly is an 18-year-old midfielder who's coming back from injury. So he went for Timber on the left-hand side, where I think we assumed Adama would play, by the way. So all the more reason, because you got Kivior next to him. The idea that we could have gone Miles Lewis-Skelly and Kivior as a left side of our defense away in the Premier League strikes me as not possible. So we did start Partey at right back. We did go with Jorginho in midfield, and we did go with Timber and Kivior on the left. I'm curious what you think, not just with the benefit of hindsight, but even in real time when you saw the lineup.
I just thought that was all we could do. I mean, the Zinchenko injury, I mean, I should know better, but it surprised me. I didn't see that coming, So,
the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, mate. That's just how that works. I didn't see it coming.
Very naive for me. But I generally thought, we got him off in the last game when he was getting runner, and I thought, yeah, it'd be fine, to come in and start this game would have been absolutely fine. I am one of the very few, that prefers Kivior as a left back than or the third defender, the outside centre back when you roll around into a three. I like him as that third defender on the left hand side. And so, if he'd have played left back, it would have been Partey sort of inverted. And I'm happy with Timber at centre back. Again, I've seen it with my own eyes. I think he's got that last man gene. He understands it. And I would have happily played him at centre back and played Kivior left back. And I just prefer that. It's just my own preference. I'm not saying I'm right. That's just my own preference. I think Timber is really a good centre back, particularly covering space and covering transitions. And I think he's really pacey and really decisive. And if you look at the goal, Elliot, I had a good chance to have a look at it. There was Fulham plays some good passes. He goes back to the keeper, and the keeper lumps it forward. He lumps it forward to Jimenez. And at that point, there's no way, I promise you this, if Gabriel's playing centre back, that he's allowing him to chest it off. No chance. If he chests it off, his chest would be on the floor, and it'd be a foul. The move stops right there. And this is what I spoke to you about letting events control you. He's allowed the layoff, then he spun in behind him, right? So it's these little details. So that's, for me, the lineup picks itself. We wouldn't pick this lineup. For people trying to kill the manager on this, he would want to pick something else. So he's making do with this lineup. The one bit you could say, I'm loath to kill on lineups because we don't know the health of the players on the bench. We don't know the health of the players who are not in the team. We don't know what they look like in training. So based on that, this lineup, maybe this lineup is fine, isn't it? I even thought about Jorginho for this game. You know why? Because I was sort of worried after a big game against Manchester United that the team would need a G-up. And so Jorginho's quite a directive player. He's a bit of a leader. And I think he would not let us fall into that sort of trap game type thing. Keep us going forward. He did fine, but I still think we lost a little bit from not having, say, Partey in midfield or maybe Rice deeper. I felt we lost a little bit, but I say that now purely in hindsight.
Yeah, I think really the issue I think people keep pulling on related to this lineup is Partey at right back. And I think the reason for that is fair, by the way, which is Timber has been so good on the right, helping really reinvigorate that side and the triangles and the space it creates for Saka and how it lets Odegaard play. I think when Partey has to play right back, he did get down the flank at times in this game, but I think what we wind up doing is we either pull Odegaard out to the touchline or even Kai out to the touchline to drag a defender over there and try to create ways to get Saka into the half space. And it works at times, but in general, I think the fear with the Partey at right back thing is more about how it impacts our attack than how it impacts our defense. In this game, though, to your point, Clive, I feel like the only alternative to the lineup we picked would have been Miles Lewis-Skelly at left back. And I think Miles Lewis-Skelly, Kivior left side of the defense away in the Premier League is not something you can reasonably ask the manager to do. Some people might say they want it. I don't. I don't see that as an option, especially given that Miles Lewis-Skelly has only just come back from a bit of an injury himself. But in terms of the attacking dynamic component with Partey at right back, do you think that is a sort of valid concern of having to go with this lineup and maybe something we saw with the first half that outside of maybe the first 7 or 8 minutes was a bit stale, was a bit turgid, much like the United first half, to be fair?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, this one. I mean, I think Odegaard was a bit flat, but I think he, just from memory, and I've rewatched a little bit to the game. If you notice, for me, Odegaard was receiving the ball quite wide,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, again, when Partey plays in centre midfield, I think him and Odegaard have got a very good link. And I think Odegaard receives the ball in far more dangerous areas. So by having Partey play at right back, he's 31 years of age, right? He's fitting in because we've got 5 or 6 defensive injuries, right? So Ben White would play, Tomiyasu would play, Timber would play right back before you asking Thomas Partey to do it. The fact he's able to do it stops us having to play a kid out there, right? So it's not ideal. So we have to accept it. We have to accept it. But how did it affect us? I think Odegaard was potentially picking up the ball in the wrong areas. In areas where we need a little bit more dynamism, a bit more sprinting speed, receiving it sometimes on the outside of Saka. And when Partey plays, I think he holds his centre a bit more. He knows he's going to get the ball from him, disguised pass, turns around, and we have more centrality, right? So we lose the dynamics there. Before we started the pod, I sort of checked a lot of these sort of average positions over the last few games. And we are playing this way anyway. With Havertz and Odegaard over on the right-hand side. We clump right significantly. Now, Jorginho's over there. Partey's over there when he plays. So we definitely clump and have a relationship on that side. And we play very close together. And we keep the ball there. And that gives us our control. So when we are controlling games, we don't look at why. We just control games. And part of it is our compactness and how we attack same side, right? So, and all these players are part of this. When it doesn't work, we then look at the areas where it didn't quite click, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it works absolutely fine in this way. The optimal, the best version of Arsenal this season has included Timber at right back, but he's not able to play there because of multiple left back injuries. So we have to adapt, and so we control this game massively. We got into the right areas many times. We just lacked a bit of open play conviction for me and desire to score.
And just look, nobody wants the actually perspective, but sometimes I think we need to put it out there because we need to talk about what are we talking about? What are we really talking about? Not what do your emotions say about drawing at Fulham? What actually happened? And it is worth pointing out that Fulham, in this game, this is the second most expected goals they've allowed to anybody all season. It is by far the fewest expected goals they've generated all season, by far. And it is their lowest possession of the season, period. Now you can say, oh, it's game state. It's game state because they got an early goal and then they sat on it. Fair. How do you explain the 50 minutes where it was level, where they also did nothing? 1 shot in the first half, 1 shot in the second half. Now, that doesn't take away our responsibility to go win the game. And in the first half, I don't think we did enough to go win the game. It is another first half, Clive, that really passed us by. And, I think it's a shame because if you look at the Sporting game, if you look at the West Ham game, games where we went on to score 5 goals, I think quick starts from us change things because look, we know this. It happened last season. Teams played the lowest defensive line height against us last season. I got news for you. Did you watch the Liverpool-Newcastle game? Did you watch that one?
Mm-hmm.
Did Newcastle play against Liverpool like they played against Arsenal? No, they did not. They went and they had to go at them. And this isn't me whining. It's just the point that we know we're going to push teams back. We know we're going to face very organized, compact defenses. It is our job to break them down. But you know one way you stop that? You get an early goal. You certainly don't give them something to hold on to. Because once you do that, you're going to get the nastiest low block thrown in your face you ever seen. So in terms of these stale first halves, I mean, what do you think of the first half performance? You know, where in general, again, would you, and we'll leave their goal because you've already sort of touched on it. The way I had my notes, by the way, the funny thing is I keep notes as I
Do you?
go through the game.
Very good.
My notes were all Arsenal for the first 8 minutes. My second note, Jimenez goal. So, I mean, we really did come out of the blocks fast. To be fair, I thought we came out of the blocks really fast. We had 2 corners in the first 8 minutes. We were really on top of them. They get their goal. Then I think we kind of we shadow boxed a bit. Do you think that's fair? We didn't really push the accelerator down.
We just played and we just played, circulated the ball and just had false control. But I think the goal knocked us really. I've watched it a few times, Elliot, and it was a good goal, right? But everything went for them. Everything went for them. There was a couple, you could have a look at the keeper. I think, could you have made it a bit more difficult? Saliba could he have blocked it? Did he leave half a stride out there that he maybe regrets now? And Kiwior got run off his shoulders a little bit, and it was a good run. To be fair, it was a good run, and
but every once in a while you need those to go wide. You just need them to go wide, you know. Like just once. You sent me a really. You sent me a really interesting post, Clive. I got to reference it because you're saying it, and I don't want to miss it because I think it's really important. You sent me this post. It came from Monty, I think, on Twitter. 4 of our last 5 goals conceded. Pedro Neto, 0.02 XG. Jimenez, 0.05 XG. Emerson, 0.09 XG. Inacio, 0.05 XG. Look, we can absolutely agree our attack is probably not doing enough, but the defending is fine, and we're still getting punished by exceptionally good finishing in the key moments, you know?
Yeah, and we can pick apart any goal, right? And like I said, we could have maybe won the first ball header before we got the set and the through, right? So we could do lots of things, but we got punished badly, side netting, bang. I mean, crikey, he's going to put it any better. And I just look at that first half, and I was in a bit of shock because we've started so well, and I always worry about Fulham away. You know, they're just a decent side, and they work. And I think the manager's really good. I think tactically smart. I don't think he had an answer. He didn't have an answer. I felt he'd run us about, particularly in the away game last year. And I think he's challenged us. He's run us backwards. They didn't run us backwards. They didn't do anything. You know, we just weren't able to quite execute on the day, and I think it's an execution issue. I do think there's a bit of mindset in here, Elliot, and I want to say something to you now, right? So I think, you know, when we do get these corners, actually, I'm going to say something maybe a bit broad. I touched it on the IR yesterday. I do feel that a couple of things have seeped into us this season. The Man City away game and the titanic defensive display that we nearly got a win from. I think we found something out about ourselves that we can hold the games, we can defend against almost anybody. And I think when we lost Odegaard at the same time, and I think we became a little bit defensive in our mindset, and we became a little bit more direct in our build-up because we lost our twinkle toes in the centre of the pitch. And I think it hung about too much. I think while we were comfortable at 0, the odd teams were nicking the odd goal and making it challenging for us, right? We were dropping points, or we were dropping points due to red cards and et cetera, et cetera. So that Man City game for me hung around in our mindset too long. And I have to say, the recent set pieces, although they've been absolutely brilliant, I think they've hung around in our mind again. And I think there's no issue with leaning on something you have advantage on. There's no issue at all. But when you see our defensive players and centre mids working so hard to score on these set pieces, I think it maybe lessens the burden on our attackers. And I want to see our attackers show the same desire to score and conviction in open play as our defenders and people that are targets for set pieces are showing in a set piece play. And I think there's just a little bit of softness in what we're trying to do. I just didn't quite see it in this game. And maybe it's a bit of recency because we had 2 or 3 quiet attacking performances, maybe 3 or 4 quiet attacking performances. Maybe that's totally unfair, but I want to see that desire in open play to match a desire in set piece play.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. I tend to lean on a talent gap more than anything. I think there are people that are starting to lean into ideas like the system doesn't get us players in the right positions or doesn't create enough. And, was the system bad when we scored 5 at Sporting? Was the system bad when we scored 5 at West Ham? Was the system bad when we broke our goal scoring record last season, which, by the way, had broken our goal scoring record from the season before? Doing it with players where, in my estimation, we are still short at least one elite goal scoring player. I mean, to highlight that point, if you look at this season where, we have still outperformed our XG, which kind of blows my mind. But if you look at Liverpool, here are the games Liverpool produced a lower XG total than what we did against Fulham yesterday. Chelsea at home, fewer XG, they scored 2 goals. Newcastle away, fewer XG, they scored 3 goals. United away, fewer XG, they scored 3 goals. Brighton away, home, fewer XG, scored 2 goals. Palace away, fewer XG, only scored 1. And then the games they dropped points. Forest at home, 0.9 XG, they scored no goals. And then Arsenal, ironically, right away, 0.8 XG. How many goals did they get? They got 2. So in these games where their attack hasn't exactly been scintillating, they've found ways to put the ball in the back of the net. And I think the idea that you'd criticize our set pieces for getting us goals is not right, because you know why you get corners? You get corners because you're pushing teams back and you have a lot of possession. You've got them sitting in a low block. And frankly, if a low block is going to be difficult to break down, but we can create advantages for ourselves by getting corners, I see that as an innovative way to do something that most teams find hard to do, which is break down low blocks. So I don't have a problem with it. I do think, though, as you saw against United and as you saw against Fulham, the team just did not have the tempo and the urgency to get the ball into hurtful areas. When Arsenal play poorly, in my mind, Clive, we are too comfortable taking what the defense gives us. You know what I mean? And that is an issue. Now, in the first half, there were a couple of players that stood out to me. And once again, I think for the consecutive game running, and, especially without his partner in crime, I think William Saliba just looks the part again. A guy who, I don't have him as doing anything much wrong on the goal we conceded. But other than that, I think he was picture perfect. He gets another goal, by the way, after having gotten a goal against United. And he's just, he's lifting us. He's doing everything he can from his center back position to lift us.
Yeah, you spoke about the attack there. I think, I've got to go back to it, Elliot. I think we're playing with our feet a little bit around the edge of the area. I think we weren't quite sharp in our decision making. Now, on other occasions, we're putting the ball through legs and getting shots. Not Forest. Look at Odegaard did into Saka around the corner goal, right? So it's all there. We got the groupings there, got relationships there. We just weren't very sharp. We didn't execute. We got into areas, we controlled the territory. We didn't execute. We didn't have the conviction. We didn't have the. For me, I want to see us kick for that ball harder. Really take our shots earlier, take the efforts, make them defend, see what happens. I think we were really trying to score the perfect goals on occasions, and run lucky on some occasions where we played high percentage crosses in open play, and we didn't quite get that working for us as well. So I've watched this game highlights back and clips back of our attacking play, and I'm looking at it thinking, you know what, that's all right. What happened? We just didn't quite execute. We didn't quite execute. I look at our system. I look at our average positions on what we do on our right. So I looked at Liverpool's and Man City's. You know what Liverpool do, Elliot? They have Salah and Diaz. It's almost like 2 forwards slightly in lane 3, lane 4. Almost like 3 forwards. And everyone else is grouped centrally, right? So you know what Man City do on the main? Their groupings on the left-hand side. So they
I was going to say concede lots of goals, but go ahead. Sorry.
But I just want to have a look. When you're going for a bit of trauma, so have a look at other teams, what they're doing, because we don't see them so closely. So they have a lot of groupings on the left-hand side, and And Haaland sometimes our position is a bit deeper, but most of the time he's at the tip of the arrow, right? But a lot of it is from the left, and they sweep crosses in from there. And so we all have our thing. My worry is overburdening on one particular player who's when we group right, he's a guy on the right hand side in Saka that's at his highest average position. That's a worry for me. And I just don't quite see enough in those central spaces regarding efforts on goal and shots on goal. I want to see more from that. But that could be just this game is burned in my brain with the last game as well, potentially. The last two games, I had a similar feeling, a similar rhythm with an average first half and a better second half. But I want to see more from those central offensive areas. The last two games have also had a situation where our defensive pairing has been broken up for the first time in a while. And Saliba has been the standout, right? To go back to what you spoke to, he has been the standout. There's not much more you can say, right, Elliot? There isn't really much more you can say about him. He is exceeding his expectations because I did have a feeling that he plays his best football with Gabriel with him. Now he's just decided to just take over the whole of the back end of the pitch and drive into midfield, be our best distributor. He's carrying the ball. He's doing so much for a 23-year-old, right? So I think he's, we spoke yesterday, but I will say it again because I think it's important. There was a little interview with Ryan Taylor, I believe, in the Express this weekend, speaking about how Saliba feels at home at Arsenal. And I promise you, that is a very important moment in our history. We need to keep this guy for the next phase of his career. There's plenty of time for him to shoot off to Real Madrid when he's 28. They can have him then, right, if he goes at all. But, we need to get him down for the next contract because he's a generational player. He's a generational talent, in my opinion. One of the best centre-backs ever to play for his club. Who is doing what he is doing, apart from maybe one of the guys who's got a statue outside our ground at his age, right? Not very many, right? So I'm just so pleased to see that positive response from him.
Yeah. I think it's tough because I think we have a lot of potential stars defensively. And there's really only one of them fit available. Well, Timber, I guess, is the other one fit available. David Raya, I guess you'd put that in that group. But this is the funny thing, right? It is interesting how you can start to take things for granted. Once upon a time, we knew we were going to get goals, but it wouldn't matter because we were just so leaky at the back that we couldn't achieve the things we wanted to do. Now we can go into a game with a mix and match back four, a midfielder at back four, a fourth choice center back in the back four, right? Our right back shifted back to left back and give away almost nothing. Almost nothing. I mean, if I told you they're going to shift to Adama Traore and put him on the left to try to take on Thomas Partey, you'd say, oh, that could be dangerous. Wasn't dangerous. He never got any joy. Emil Smith-Rowe is going to have a point to prove. Apart from one miscontrolled long ball, he wasn't in the game. Raul Jimenez had one chance, one goal. That can happen. It's a shame when it happens, but it can happen. I mean, to be fair to Liverpool, like the reason they dropped points to Newcastle is because Isak whacked one from a mile out and their keeper spilled one, right? So it can happen. But it is interesting how we take for granted now how little we give away. But I still have always said, you want to pick up 3 points. And like the defense we have, I actually think makes us a really interesting candidate for winning the Champions League. Because if you give nothing away, you got a chance to go deep in those kinds of cups. But in a league, you need 3 points consistently. And 3 points consistently comes from creating enough pressure and enough chances. But also, Clive, you know why City won the league last season? City won the league last season because Phil Foden whacked a few from outside the box. And the reasons Liverpool are favorites to win the league this season is because Mohamed Salah is playing. I believe he is the best player in the world today, right now, the way he is playing. And I think Bukayo Saka is going to elevate to that level. I think at this stage of his development, he's not a goal scorer to the level that Salah is. And I'll just ask it point blank. Do we have a match winner? Do we have enough match winners? Do we have enough quality in attack to take the half chances, to take the moments? Kai Havertz had a scuffed shot from the 6-yard box. Partey had a header that he missed from a set piece. We know those are hard. And, he's your number 6. If you're relying on your 6 to win you the game, it's a little different. But I think you'd like him to get that on frame. Obviously, Martinelli offside for the winner is extremely painful, but Jesus is a shadow of himself, doesn't go for the ball over the top. Sterling isn't in the squad, period, basically. I mean, he might as well not be here. Leo has crossed the 30-year threshold, and looks just slightly less consistent, I think, from an end product standpoint than he has
Agreed.
when he first arrived. So this is the crux of it for me, Clive. Can Arsenal's attacking platoon deliver enough to go win the big trophies, to get 3 points enough, or go to a Bayern Munich and win the game? Because Mikel and Edu called out after the Bayern Munich tie, we need a little more offensive firepower to win games like this. We've gone into the season without more offensive firepower, and now we find ourselves, I think, in games like this where we should have beaten Fulham. I believe we should have beaten them. But someone's got to take that half chance, take that moment, and turn it into a goal, maybe when a goal doesn't seem to be there. In that tweet you sent me, by the way, about the goals we've recently conceded, if you look at the goals we've recently scored, they're all like 0.6 XG, 0.8 XG, 0.4 XG. You know what we haven't scored? We haven't scored a lot of those 20-yarders from nothing. Or, I think about the Gabriel Jesus goal against Leicester when he first arrived. Remember that? Shifts it and curls it. And we're all going, oh my God, this guy's a superstar. We just haven't seen much of that from any of these guys recently,
Yeah, and the Jesus goal at Seville, I thought was very simple. Well, he takes it on the left-hand side, drops the shoulder, comes inside and sticks it in the side netting from an angle. We just haven't seen those surprising goals. Calafiori's goal against Man City, I was out my seat.
There you go. That
can
win you a league. You get enough of those,
That sort of goal is what we need to see more of, maybe. We are good at crafting chances. When we don't quite craft a chance or miss a chance that is crafted by us, we're concerned because we can't see where that half chance is coming from. Ian Wright always says this to us: we need a half chance taker, and we haven't got that. Isak's shot this week, everyone's now thinking, well, that's a centre forward, right? And he's just that's unbelievable strike, right? So and then you see Kai's near post shank shot this weekend, and there's a big comparison being made. We need a striker, and people are going to go there. Absolutely, yes, they're right. People are going to go there based on what they've just seen, and it's just where we are at this moment in time. I got to be consistent. When we made those moves in the summer, I can always try to explain them. I'm thinking, well, you know what? We've moved Eddie on, and Jesus now will fall into the Eddie role. We bought Marino, so Kai won't have to play in midfield anymore. He'll be the centre forward. We got Jesus. We've got Kai. We've got Trossard can play centre forward. We've got Trossard can play on the left. We brought in Sterling, can play left and right. Is that going to be enough? Well, hopefully we'll be okay. I just didn't suspect the fall off on Jesus. I didn't suspect we're going to have Martin Odegaard out for 10 games or so. I didn't see Trossard maybe stop executing as much as he has. It's a little bit, maybe it's a bit unfair because he's done fantastic well this year. I didn't suspect Martinelli dropping away a little bit. And then you think we've moved on Nelson for Sterling, and we didn't see much of Nelson, we've seen less of Sterling. So you look at the group and we are overburdening people, and you got to ask the question, it's a very valid question to ask. Have we got enough firepower? And 98 out of 100 would say no. And that's the truth, right? But we have to be honest, Elliot, be consistent. We were hoping, I say we, but it's more you, that Jesus was going to be a breakout player for the season. We had hopes for him. Look how sharp he looked pre-season. We had hopes for him.
27. Yeah, we talk about him like he's 40 because he plays like he's 40.
He's our 27-year-old. He's one of our captains of our team, and he's our second or third highest paid player, and he's got more medals than anybody else in the squad. And I can't find him. And didn't suspect it, didn't see it. Right, so we have to react to this. Either we resurrect his form somehow, or we have to do something in January, because otherwise we're going to waste the season. And we are. And we're going to end up going to Bayern Munich again with tired out forwards. That's what we did last year, And that was my worry. And that's why I wanted certain players in the summer to allow us to take minutes out of some of our key first 11 players. And we haven't done it. We haven't achieved it. We've seen drops off in form for whatever reason, and we need to get some of that back, and we might need to do something to fix this, because I'm not sure we're going to be able to go on the run. Remember last year, Elliot, when we hit Christmas, we played Fulham, we played West Ham, killed West Ham, lost the game 2-0. Lost at Fulham out of nowhere, lost Liverpool in the cup. We played well, but we still lost. Everything was turning to wood, right? But we managed to reinvent ourselves. And we reinvented ourselves by moving Kai to centre forward. I'm really having a different focal point. It had direction, and we played around that system there. We had a consistency with Kivior, Jorginho playing in the team. We cradled the team with big fullbacks, and we went from there. And we had a fantastic set of results. When I think this season, I'm looking at that reinvention. What is that reinvention? Right, so we got flexible fullbacks, good fullbacks when they're fit. So we know we're going to see a bit more attacking from our fullbacks. But what is that offensive reinvention? You know, Kai's already at centre forward and running his legs off. Odegaard's in the right place, running his legs off. So Saka. The left-hand side has faded a bit. So where's the reinvention going to come from? You know, to get that run, to get that new cohesion. Where's it going to come from within the squad? And this is why I'm convinced we could do something in January, because I think we need to. I genuinely think we need to, because I can't see it, man. I can't see where it's going to come.
I want to ask you about Kai. And let me just say this. Look, there is frustration with the manager. That's just always natural when your expectation is over 90 points and win the title. And then you see City have their worst season in living memory, and it seems there for you. And instead of you being the one to take advantage, Liverpool are, and oh, by the way, Chelsea too, and we'll talk about them in a moment. But I think there's an interesting Kai question here as well. Like, to me, he is our Firmino. If you want to be analogous to Liverpool's winning teams, he's more of our Firmino than he is our Haaland, obviously.
Yeah.
And when they had Firmino, they had Salah and Sadio Mane. And we have our Salah, you know, maybe not in the goal scoring maybe not from a goal scoring standpoint, but you can win things with Bukayo Saka for sure. But we don't have our Sadio Mane. And the two things I'll say about Kai, one is I think what he adds would be seen as a lot more valuable in the context where we had a reliable goal scorer of an elite level on the left. We don't. But I also think I wanted to ask you something about this, Clive. Kai was brilliant from January to May. Brilliant. And I think he started this season brilliantly. I know it feels a long way off now, but he really did. And then Odegaard got injured. And he had to play that hybrid role with Leo, that sort of 9.5, 9/10 thing that we've talked about a lot. And I think since Odegaard's come back, the clarity for Kai is not there as much. And I'm wondering if you think that when Mikel gives him this complex instruction of all the things he had to do when he was playing the Odegaard role, if it's taking him some time now to reset as a 9, because he was playing with such conviction in his finishing and in his box presence. Then he played without Odegaard, changed his role, and I don't think since Odegaard's come back, we've seen that conviction from him. Is it just the player? Is it fatigue? Is it he's just had too much in his brain in terms of what he's had to do tactically? Because I don't see the same level of conviction we were seeing from him from January to roughly, September.
Yeah, I can only say what I see. I'm not sure what's in his brain, but I do know that when all I know, the pillow feet reappeared at the weekend, didn't they? Out of nowhere, and that tells me someone is maybe a little bit fatigued and reaching a little bit for their technique. When you're sharp, everything looks sharp, and so for me, we all have I know you have a defensive 6 and 2 flare 8s. You know, and Eze and Odegaard, that would suit you down at the ground, right? And then that's your 5 attackers there. I'm a little bit more the Liverpool style, actually. I like a facilitator 9, but I do like a tall striker left winger, right? We all have our biases, right? So the profile of a Rashford, the profile of a Rafa Leao, a profile of an Isak, although I think he's more centre forward now, but from the left, it's the sort of thing I like. Because if you're going to have your highest paid player playing as a 9, and he's that style of facilitator 9, then you need to look at your wide men and ask yourself, have you got the balance? And I think we have a true winger on the left that's more about beating his man to facilitate for others. Well, actually, if we've got facilitator 9, a facilitator 10, we need a killer on the left, a forward on the left who wants to score, that's got a big goal bonus. That's the sort of guy we want on our left-hand side. Saka does it, but he's also a creator. And he's also had a massive influence on our goal involvement. But I think the balance, for the football that I like, and I'm not saying, this is the only way to play, but I prefer to have that striker off the left. If we're going to be a right-sided build-up team, I like a wing forward on the left who can finish and find himself in the box. Because that's the balance of who we are. We're right-sided slant, so our left side has got to be about that, and And at the moment in time, I don't think that balance is quite correct for the team that we have morphed into. And that's it. We've morphed into this team. We've morphed away from Jesus at 9, Kai at 8, and Martinelli with people around him, facilitating all around him in a group. We've moved away from that. We've moved away from Xhaka and Zinchenko firing the ball in that left-hand side to Martinelli. So we're now something else. We've become a facilitation team centrally, and we're very right-sided biased. And so we're now evolving in a different way. And that's the challenge that we have, right? And I think we need to reinvent ourselves a little bit on that left-hand side to really make us stand out there. Because at the moment, people know where we're going. And when we come out of there, we're not damaging people enough on that left-hand side. We're just not hurting people.
Yeah, I think that's right. In terms of a piece of that left-hand side, Declan Rice is part of it. He's been under the microscope a little this season as well. I actually think we're seeing a Declan Rice who's returning to his fit best. Very unlucky with his volley that misses the far post. Created a really nice chance. Had another one that goes across the box where he just fails to get onto it. Had a really lovely pass into Kai that he miscontrolled. And was he the one who played the little chip ball up to Jesus?
He was.
Yeah, he had that run from deep. I really enjoyed his performance again after what I thought was a near man of the match performance, if not man of the match performance against United. And I also think it's just silly, this rule out open place, set piece stuff, because his set pieces are fantastic. He had those curlers from free kicks in this game that went just through the sort of corridor of uncertainty, unlucky not to get contact there. And then he had the corner kicks that could have produced multiple goals. Obviously the Saliba goal, there was the Partey header. So I'm really satisfied with how he's playing, but I think Clive, there is, look, if you were Kai Havertz, that would be great too, but we love you as you are. And then you could buy dinner. There is a desire, I think, to see Rice, Marino, Odegaard. Why do we buy Marino if we're not going to start Marino? And we scored our most ever goals with Rice at left 8 last season, and he was one of our players of the season, if not our player of the season. He's starting to round back into form in that role and playing it really well. So I'm not in a huge hurry to move him out of there now that he looks like he's starting to get really comfortable there. But I think there are people that have a real big impatience to see Marino come into the team more regularly. So what's your take on that? That Rice's role at left 8, Marino being more of a complementary piece, or do we need to get them both on the pitch along with Odegaard at the same time?
Yeah, let's have a look at it, right? Let's have a look at it. I don't think we've seen it that much. And,
we saw it in this game.
Yeah. Well,
briefly.
Contractually, they are the future, aren't they? That's my view. So when you see the club invest in people, then, if the club have invested in Kai Havertz as a centre forward, and so you got to think yourself, okay, we're going to invest in something else to push him, right? So are we going to put someone on top of him for 125 million? I'm not sure we are, right? So will we do that, spend that money left-hand side? Well, we might do. Do you see what I mean? And that's just sufficient use of your resources, right? So when it comes to centre mid, we have 3 guys on good contracts with years that we just renewed or just bought. And we haven't really seen them yet due to injuries for 2 of them, right? And one of them might be injured now. So it's coming in. We've got 150 games to go. It's going to happen. So it's just a matter of time, isn't it? It's going to happen. And on paper and the little snippets we've seen of individuals, it could work, couldn't it? It could work. We can see it. It's not, it's not stupid, the idea of having those 3 together. You've got someone at the base who's really can cover things. Marino's a cute player. He's quite smart. Difficult for him to get a rhythm. One minute he does something good, next minute he does something bad. That's just, he's coming onto different situations every single time. But he's a smart dude, right? He knows what he's doing around the pitch. He knows how to receive it. He gets himself into right areas. He reads collisions. He reads when he needs to intercept. And he moves the ball very, very quickly. So I like the rhythm by which he plays. I really do. I like him. Odegaard's going through a once-a-lifetime moment right now as a new parent. Only happens once in your life, and it's very emotionally draining. And he looked drained on the pitch to me. He looked drained.
And you don't get
a
lot of sleep. And I can tell you this: I know you can have, if you're rich, you can have night nurses and all this stuff. I promise you, there's a crying baby in the house. There's your sleep is disrupted. For athletes that are used to getting 12 hours of sleep a night and having their life a certain set way, his life is changing now, and he's going to have to adapt to that.
He's going to have to adapt to it. Nothing new. When you bring a new human into the world, into your house that you're responsible for, you telling me you just snooze off to sleep? No chance. It's a major moment in your life, and that's it, right? He's come back into his team. He came back after being out for 10 games or so, came back in as if nothing had happened. There was probably always going to be a bit of a plateau for him as he starts to rack the games up and rack the minutes up. He's always going to plateau off, and he has just a little bit. But, he can't be everything to all people, right? We can't keep having this reliance on individuals. If they're not there, we can't play. And again, I look back at it. I look back at the highlights and the shots and the moments that we had. We created enough to win this game. It's just frustrating that we didn't. And if it weren't for that offside, we would be having a very different conversation. But if I want to take it back a little bit and look at the trends, I got to be honest with you, I'm wondering about our power in those offensive areas. I'm just wondering about it. Are we a little bit light? Are we a little bit overly technical on occasions and not enough brawn to really fire people, move people? I feel this, Elliot, and I know I feel this consistently. And when it all goes well, I don't say it. I don't say anything about it. I accept it, but there are moments where I want to see more conviction in our shooting. Remember Clive's shot against, I think it's Southampton to equalise, go 1-1, when he strode through and smashed it off the post. I haven't seen one of those finishes for ages, and
that goes back to my point, though, right? It was before he had been given that hybrid role, before Odegaard went out, and I just think he's lost a little clarity of role. He's trying to be too much, and we're doing things with him where sometimes he's out at the touchline so that we can get Saka more central. And I love the Mikel system because, candidly, it gives away so little, and it has allowed us to break our goal scoring record in consecutive seasons.
Yep.
But there are times when I think some of these players, the complexity of what they are asked to do, especially for someone whose job is to get in the box and finish chances, I think it can cloud their clarity of purpose.
You can always have clarity in your messaging, Elliot. And I think if you want to say to me, Clive, I think Clive needs to show a bit more box movement and stay present in the box a little bit more, you won't get an argument from me. Can he run across near post a little bit more? I think his number one ability is his IQ. So I don't worry about him absorbing messages because he's very smart player in his movement. But I just think he needs to be a little bit more simplistic. You're 6'4", stay where you can be found easily and hit that target really, really hard. I will say he was really doing well. We were just starting to run him out a bit. And remember, we kept him back for the international break, the second international break of the 3. He didn't go back. And he came back, I think the first game we played was Bournemouth away after the international break. And I felt he had a flat game that day. Right, obviously the day went wrong. We're down 10 men. It's hard to judge people, but I was looking at that and I thought, you really have been injured. You haven't trained. He didn't look sharp. Do you know what I mean? And we lost that game, put it to memory. But since then, has he been at his absolute best? In patches, he's been good. But you're saying this about messages. Again, I'm not going to dismiss it. You could be absolutely right. We are going to do a lot of things. But I'm saying potentially it could be that injury. And we don't know what it is, but there's no chance to rest him through it, is it? What game did we drop him for? Not drop him for, but rotate him for that he didn't come on for. Was it
Forest?
Might have been Forest, yeah. And Jesus played centre forward, remember, when we were discussing that game? And he didn't come on. I thought that was quite interesting. I think, again, we only know what we know. But it wouldn't surprise me, much like with Ben White, when he started to tell that he carried something for a long time until eventually something had to happen. Let's see what's going on there. I'm not saying he's playing bad, but he's not at his bombastic, I'm a dual winner best at the moment.
Yeah, and worryingly, like, Martin Odegaard got kicked to pieces in this game, and his ankle was hurting him, and he had to come off, which he never does. And I don't think he came off from fatigue. I think his ankle was bothering him. I mean, he came off in a game where we needed him. And in fact, to my point about seeing Marino, Rice, and Odegaard, Marino came on at 74 and Odegaard came off at 79, and Havertz came off when Marino came on as well. So we saw Jesus instead of Kai. Like we didn't get the full look at it. I want to talk about Martinelli. I have some questions about him.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about set pieces again a little bit, the Chelsea situation, a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it, but I have to at least give you just a few brands that can improve your life. And one of them, of course, is Manscaped. We're not talking about your privates. I apologize. I know that is the part of the pod you most look forward to, but Chairman Pro, it's an amazing electric foil shaver. Over 11 million men worldwide trust Manscaped. You can use code ArsenalVision to get 20% off and free shipping. The Chairman Pro is a phenomenal face shaver. And I have not been an electric shaver fan, but a couple things I like about this. It's wet dry, so you can use it in the shower. It has a screen that tells you how much battery life is left. It has about 75 minutes of battery runtime on a single charge, which is nice. You can travel with it, not have to worry about it. It has flex adjust technology, so it goes around the neck and the nose area. Changeable heads, so you can get the hard to reach places on the face, much like their other products can get the hard to reach places in other places. It's just really good. Really, really good. Long battery life. Effective face shaver. I love it. I think you will as well. You can get the Chairman Pro at manscaped.com using code ArsenalVision. Get 20% off free shipping with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. That's 20% off free shipping with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. And this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp isn't online therapy. It's therapy that happens to be online. Can't say this enough. When I worked with a therapist, I worked with a therapist in her office, drove there, met with her. It was a really, really important process that I went through, and I'm so glad I did it. Not everyone can do that process. They don't drive. There's no one nearby. They don't have the comfort level. They don't have the time. Can you get in the car? Can you drive there? Can you drive back? You may want access to therapy or have thought about getting access to therapy, but found the process too hard to get started. BetterHelp makes it easy to start the process. You get online, you pair with someone that's a good match for you, find someone that's a specialist if there's an area of need you have, especially around the holidays when I know people struggle with seasonal depression and issues like that. This could be something that helps you through a difficult time. So if you've benefited from therapy in the past, maybe this is a way to get back into it. Find your comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/vision today. Get 10% off your first month. It's BetterHelp, HELP.com/vision. Do it now. And finally, NordVPN. Don't need to say much about this. They have very highly rated speed. That's something I want to emphasize about Nord because it is a thing with a VPN that's important. When you have a VPN running, you also want your internet speed to be fast. They rate very, very highly. You can go check out their ratings for speed. Check out their independent ratings. They rate very highly. You can put their app on any device you're using and browse in another location. So when you want to watch a football match that's available on your streaming service, but not where you are, or watch a streaming service that's not available where you are, or watch some geo-locked video on social media, you tap a button, tap the app, boom, you're on the VPN, and you can watch. They also have threat protection. And since we are occasionally watching streams from dodgy links, that's important to have. NordVPN can help you out. Get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan plus 4 more months for free with NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. That's NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. Completely risk-free with NordVPN's money-back guarantee. You get a huge discount, 4 additional months, completely risk-free. Do it now. Clive, done of that.
Indeed.
Sort of a perfunctory effort from me there, but we got a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it, so let's move on. The second half, I thought we looked really good, candidly. I thought we showed purpose. I thought we controlled the game. I think anybody who wants to say, well, it's game state, that's why Fulham didn't do anything. We get the goal relatively early in the second half. Okay, now the game state is level, and you can't convince me that Fulham felt having no possession and one shot and get battered was a game state only idea. I think they would have liked to have done more. They brought on some offensive firepower from the bench as well to try to do more, and they really were not able to get themselves into this game in any meaningful way. We created the chances. We really did. I'm curious what you think. I mean, I want to ask you just super quick about our goal. Kai Havertz has a header from 5 yards out, and he doesn't head it on goal. He heads it back across the goal. Do you have any thought in your head that's just sort of like, yeah, I'd like my striker to back himself there? I mean, it's a goal. It feels so. I know people are screaming at their device. Are we really going to criticize him for an assist on a goal? Yes, I am literally going to just as a discussion point. Is that just sort of indicative of his philosophy? In that situation, or is that am I making something out of nothing?
I personally don't think it was a on purpose assist. I think he was trying to head the target really, really hard, and the ball was skewing wide, and it was tapped in. Right, so that's what I think. Headers is hard header. You know the percentage of a headed chance on goal. It's not easy, and he didn't get his timing right. Much like Thomas Partey, didn't get his timing right. Trying to power it in, it glanced off his head. It's gone past the post. So we got lucky on that one, got unlucky on the other, and so yeah, it would have been nice to head that straight in, but fouls on our side on that occasion. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Barely on side 2, by the way, which we got, which we'll take it. And then it really was one of those situations where Mikel had to make some changes. He had to bring Waneri on. I don't think he did anything wrong, although I don't think he was a big part of the game. At that point, Thomas Partey had his big miss from corners. I do think, look, we've all seen games like this where you go away on a windy, rainy, cold night. Their first shot goes in and you're chasing the game and you never create anything. And I think people have this totally wrong on set pieces. Like, yes, we should create more threat from open play. But the fact that we are able to take pre-planned moments of the game where we are coached well and leverage that into good chances is a positive, not a negative. We have all seen times when you go to a team that's well-drilled, it's rainy, it's wet, it's cold, it's windy, and they just shut it down and you never create an opening. And this set piece thing has given us a way to change games. I think Clive, I think the reason I feel like I'm taking crazy pills is it is being used as such a stick to beat us with when it should be such a point of pride and celebration that Arsenal have found this way. I mean, I remember Klopp getting praised for hiring a throw-in coach and, he wants to expose every possible opportunity to be the best team on the planet. And now we're doing that with corners in a really impactful way. And instead it's being used as an example of why our attack's not doing enough from open play. Even if I agree our attack's not doing enough from open play, this set piece threat is special. It's repeatable. And I think we should be celebrated for it. I really do.
Yeah, if you've got players that really want to attack it, then you've got to use it as an advantage. I'm sure I've had many times watching Real Madrid play with Sergio Ramos, maybe in the Champions League finals, and him coming in and heading key goals to change the course of the event. It's just part of the game, right? It just is. And we've got some very good players at doing this. And we look like a really well-coached team. And it shows in all of our restarts. You can see that we plan, our throws, our corners, our free kicks. They're well thought through. Everyone knows what they're doing. So you can see that we really do think about that side of things. And the bit that we need to think about, Elliot, and something you've said in the past, I've always sort of thought, yeah, it's okay, but we'll be fine. But actually, I'm falling more to this. Around the individualism that we spoke to earlier, some of my best moments of when I was coaching, sometimes I just had a good player that would just get the ball, beat two men, stick it top corner. Everyone thinks, great coach, Clive. Well, mate, you need players to do something for you, and you need players to do something for you. You need to look after them, you need to nurture them, you need to maybe move them to their best position. But you need someone to stick it in the top corner every now and again, on a difficult away game. And that makes you look great. I want to see people sticking in top corner for our manager because he's coaching the arse out of his team, right? You can criticise him for the odd substitution. If you want to see a player playing a certain position, you can criticise him on selection. When it comes to overall coaching, style of play, pattern of play, what we're doing on the bits, on the coachable moments in the game, we are right up there with the very best, right up there. We need a bit more individualism at these moments, these darker moments when we're not quite at it. At the moment, when we're not quite at it, we're turning to set pieces. And I want to see that balanced out a little bit more. So a couple more top corners, a couple more Calafiori shots, please. That'll do me. That style of shot. Because I think you put that together and teams will have to change how they play. And maybe teams won't be so low blocks, Elliot. If we keep getting set pieces and scoring, they're going to have to come out a bit more and play because they don't want to lose a territory battle. And that could help us. So things evolve over a season.
Yeah. I think you make a couple really good points there as usual, which, we made a decision to emphasize certain qualities in certain defensive players we acquired, like Timber and like Calafiori, who can progress the ball, who can score, who can create openings for other players, that we felt that to power up our attack, it's very hard to go find. I got news for you. There's no 30 goal a season striker out there. You just go buy and you win the league. But maybe you can find Calafioris who can score from outside the box, who can dribble up the pitch, Timbers who can create unbelievable overloads on either side that he's on and increase your offensive firepower with complementary pieces. And with Calafiori out and Tomiyasu out, who also we've seen him do that. He scored an important goal against Everton final day of the season. He scored important goals for us before. With Gabriel out, our set piece specialist, with Timber having to move to the other side where I think he's a little less effective. Again, that decision we made in our squad building is being undermined by some of these injuries. Now, you could say, well, we decided to add to an injured left back core a guy who has an injury track record. Fair enough. I can't argue with that. So we'll just have to see. I think the injuries are creating problems. And while I accept that there are selection issues, I don't see Miles Lewis, Skelly, and Kivior as the left-hand side of the defense having been a reasonable selection for an away game in the Premier League against a good team. So I'm not prepared to look at that as what he should have done. You could say, well, if he'd done that, we would have won. or we would have conceded 3 silly goals. I don't know. On the left-hand side, though, I think Trossard was starting to percolate I'm not going to
Yeah,
say he had a great game, but he was
he
starting to
didn't.
come into it when we made the change for Martinelli. And I wonder what you think about that side. I feel like on the left-hand side, we have 2 players who both have different things in their game, neither of whom are right on it at the moment. If only you could combine their qualities, right? Like a little
Yeah.
sophistication, because we saw Leo again play another ball over the top. In this game, we saw him do some of the things we like. He's not in the box finishing things. Martinelli, of course, is not playing at his top level. What do you think of that change and the timing of it, given that I think Leo was just starting to influence the game a bit?
Well, we've rotated the 2 of them, haven't we, for a while, and they've been quite fresh and done some good things in recent games. We all predicted that Trossard would probably start this game. He sort of has done well at Fulham in the past, and we all thought that Martinelli would play against Manchester United against that back three with space to run into. Martinelli had some opportunities against Manchester United, didn't quite take them. And you talk about lack of clarity. Well, he has a lack of clarity at the moment regarding his defensive play. And his decision making, it's just there. It just really is there. I don't like saying it, Elliot, because that's one of the players that we don't expect to be having this conversation about. We have given him a big boy contract. He's in the late 100s, right? He's nearly at Saka money. And when he signed that contract, I didn't hear a peep from anybody to say, what are we doing? We think
No, I
about
thought he was a
securing.
future superstar. You kidding me? I was thrilled he was signing up with us. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're thinking about securing the future of one of the young, bright players in the world. And basically, we are securing his future for the next few years. And he just hasn't quite kicked on at this moment in time. He just hasn't kicked on. And so here we are in a situation where we're looking at him, we're looking at Saka, we're looking at other players, and we're just not quite seeing it. Now, I just feel, Elliot, in this game in particular, he looked a little bit lost and he looked a bit affected by the pressure. And I haven't seen that before. I've seen him have bad moments. I don't really care, to be honest, because the intention is quite direct. He's always positive. He's got a goldfish memory. He throws it away and goes again. But I felt he was affected a bit more in this game, and I felt it did damage you. And, sometimes there are moments in your career that you wish goes for people. I always remember when Anelka scored in the 99 FA Cup semi-final and it was disallowed for offside. That would have been a moment for him to really be connected to the club when he left thereafter. I look at Martinelli in this moment. I looked at him when he crossed that ball and he looked so happy. And then for it to be taken away, and then to him for it to be his, so you can debate whose fault it is. My personal opinion is, mate, you control the story by your positioning, regardless when the ball arrives at your feet. You control the story. You can see he was half a foot off. Not even that. So it's very difficult for me to slaughter him. But you just got to stay on side. You just got to stay on side. And if he has that moment, then we find that player. We find him again. And he's lifted. He's just created a moment and he's back for the midweek game. That's how things change, mate. That's how things change so far. But I have to be honest with you, I'm worried, Elliot. I'm worried about him. I'm worried about where he is at the moment. Again, my same thoughts with Jesus. I know we need them. We absolutely need them. We can't have 2 or 3 players lose form, particularly in the offensive end of our pitch, at the same time. But I say this after scoring 5 at West Ham, 5 in Lisbon, 3 against Forest, 2 against Manchester United, which was euphoric, regardless of the set pieces. And here we are a few days later, and I'm throwing 3 or 4 of our players into the bin. Right? It's difficult, isn't it?
It's funny. We can continue to go on a run, whoop Everton at the Emirates this weekend, beat Monaco on Wednesday, go beat Palace in the league after that. Liverpool dropped points at Spurs. And suddenly we were looking at a somewhat unlucky draw against Fulham where we just missed it by an inch of being onside. And we'll say, this has been a great run, right?
Yeah.
Because it's 3 against Forest and 5 against West Ham and 2 against United and hard fought draw away at Fulham and then a win against Everton away. This draw it's two things, right? First of all, that's not offside. We're talking about this game as a brilliant away performance under tough circumstances. And it will also look like a fine point in context depending on what happens in the next few weeks. None of that changes for me the fact that I think Martinelli's game right now, he has not, here's what I would say. I don't think he's a better player today than he was at 20. And that's kind of the thing for me that's difficult. At 20, the way he was playing, I saw a player that I felt was on the trajectory similar to Saka. Saka's unique. You can't compare him to Saka. It's not fair to him. He's unique. But if you take what he was at 20 and project out development to 23, you've got a really high quality left-sided attacking player. The problem is, I think at 23, he is essentially the same player he was at 20. I feel a little bad killing a guy who put in one of the best crosses I've ever seen for a back post headed winner for being slightly offside. Because, like, let's say he was onside and didn't put in that good a cross. You don't get the goal either. But it is emblematic of where he's at right now, where it's just not quite going for him. I mean, he scored a goal against United, by the way, that was offside because remember, they won the ball back. Ball goes to Kai. Kai lays it back to Martinelli, but that's offside. I keep waiting for that player who has that extra bit in him to come out. But the thing for me, Clive, is that he just feels a little one-dimensional when he's head down, staring at the ground, and there's a fullback in front of him. He can get to the byline. Does he get inside enough, get his shots off enough? I think his shots have sort of cratered. So when you look at a 1.5 shot per 90 Martinelli and a 1.5 shot per 90 Kai, that's not going to get it done from an offensive standpoint. And then when you bring Jesus on and he just doesn't seem like he's even connected to what's happening on the pitch. I mean, that moment where he doesn't go for the Rice ball over the top, it's going to stay with me. I'll tell you that. That's going to stay with me for a while. I guess the question is, do we have enough high-end quality in attack to win big trophies? Can you win a Premier League? Can you win a Champions League with Saka plus a bunch of okay guys? And I don't know that you can, is where I'm starting to lean, you know?
Yeah, so I think the Arsenal world is violently agreeing with itself that we need a bit more firepower. So let's just call it what it is, right? So I think with Martinelli, what's happening with him? Excuse me, sorry, Elliot. What's happening with him is he's not seeing the future, right? So when he has the ball, he's running with it and he's seeing his next touch and he's thinking, how can I beat this man, right? Which side I'm going to go, it doesn't really matter. You know, how can I beat this man? How can I wait for him to jump so I can jump past him and run? So he's took the vision out of his game. So what I mean by that is, let's compare him to Saka now. When Saka's traveling with the ball, he's got his head up looking at the player. He's not looking at the ball, he's looking at the player, see what he's going to do. He's creating things. So he's thinking, if I knock it inside, I can go again. Secondary movement. I've got vision beyond the guy that's in front of me. You know? Yeah. Martinelli needs to create that vision for his future on the left-hand side to say, okay, I've got the ball here. What can I do? Who can I work with? How can I get a combination to get it back? You know, how can I work within my unit? Because he has a unit over there. How can I work with them to get it back? And he's reduced his window by just being quite one-dimensional. You know, inside or out. When he comes in, he does an inverted cross, which I don't mind, by the way. That cross is what you should do a lot more of, you know. And when he goes down the left, he's okay. Gets for a corner, we go from there. But I'd like to see him get more shots off. To have the trickery to come inside, get to speed quicker. You know, there was an example the weekend with Jadon Sancho. I know it's only Spurs and they leave loads of green grass for your TV to have a look. But he comes inside very quickly, receives it, and goes into motion inside on the angle, driving in to get his shot, right? You just add the layers to your game. Find your vision. Find your next thing. He's reduced it to just the very thing he's actually doing, and everyone can see it. There's been some moments that we got to ask questions, right? We don't like to do it. I don't like to do it because I'm a supporter first and foremost. But when you're running one-on-one against Harry Maguire and he's pinned back in big spaces, no one near him, that should only result in one thing. You know, either you ripping him, either inside or out. But it shouldn't result in just nothing statistically. That can't happen. It can't happen. Not for the player who we're relying on to help us deliver.
And these are all sliding door moments. I mean, this is how seasons go, right? Because look at what it meant to him when the goal went in. Look at what it meant to Martinelli. Like, think of what that lift could have meant to that player. Saka at the back post header, like a thing that he's working on. And now you add that as a string to your bow and you get 3 instead of 1 on a day when it all seemed like it was going against you. And instead, granted, because of Martinelli not being quite as sharp as he needs to be, it's so harsh, but he's slightly off.
Yep.
We don't get that. And instead we get the 1 point. I still think
he can come back.
There is a world where if you want to say we played well enough to win this game and you're willing not to get too dragged down by the draw, I think you can live that way. But I do think this game is emblematic of a larger conversation. I don't think it's about whether our system supports our players enough to create goals. We've seen it do it for 2 seasons. I think it is about whether there's enough offensive firepower in the players we have to call on. And it's an area we know we needed to improve in the summer. And instead, we lost Nelson, we lost Vieira, we lost Smith Rowe, we lost Eddie, and we replaced him with Sterling. And while I don't think any of those 4 players in isolation were the answer, we have 4 fewer players in the attack, and the one we added isn't in the group, and he can't get on, so it's disappointing. Last quick word. Do you see Chelsea as an issue here, or, is this just one of those cases of they're hot at the moment, but, they have the opposite problem to us. They can score goals for fun, but defensively, I think they're weak.
Yeah,
but we can laugh at Spurs. We can always laugh at Spurs. It's quite hilarious.
Yeah, we should save a bit of Chelsea chat. Chelsea, youngest team in the league, remind me of what we were 2 years ago, right? The youngest team in the league, just playing once a week. They're not playing in Europe really, and we got ourselves up into second, didn't we? And so yeah, they spent a load of money. They managed to sell a hotel to fix the books, and they spent a load of money. They sold their captain, who's homegrown, and they do things I don't agree with, but they are where they are, and they've got a massively deep squad, and that story is to be told, right? It's not completed yet.
It is such a nice come from behind story from a team that, with just 1.5 billion pounds of investment, manages to claw their way into a top 4 battle. You know what? We'll save the Chelsea chat for our power rankings. We'll knock out one of those this week. That'll be fun because I think there's an interesting Ange Postecoglou conversation and we can laugh at Spurs. Let's leave it there. It's Monaco on Wednesday. We'll have an instant reaction for that. We'll have a power rankings this week and we can have a little fun with that. But for right now, I think the open conversation is, can we see the offensive level increase with the players we have? That's going to need to happen, whether you want to discount set piece goals or not. And I don't want to. We all agree the open play attack needs to improve. And, there's more of a chance for that to happen on Wednesday. So we'll see. We'll leave it there. Clive, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Love you everyone for being here. Remember, we still have the 50% off on the first month of Patreon. If you're signing up this month with code 10nil, all caps, that's in the show notes if you want it. We love you. Thank you so much for being here. Big result on Wednesday coming. I know that. We love you. And we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10. Monaco 0.